Hi folks, welcome back to the channel, Tiny on Tour. I thought I'll take the opportunity to run through with you a little bit about the caravan that we are in. We've got a Crusader CRV Hurricane, and we've gone ahead and purchased this with our own money. We are not sponsored in any way by Crusader, so I feel that I have the right to say anything I wish about it. We have Starling set up on a pool cleaning pole, and that seems to be working pretty well. The wind does blow it around a little bit, but it is what it is. This particular caravan is not standard. I have added the pocket up front, and that's to house the inflatable boat, which is bobbing on the water at the moment. And while the boat's out of it, I just use it for the garbage bags or bits and pieces that we need to put away and keep neat. We've been hanging our garbage on the outside. This place is a little different from Warra. At Warra, we found that if we left anything on the beach, the crabs would come and get it. And then at Shark Bay, we found that the crows would attack the bags and peck holes in it. But so far, nothing has gone through our trash. But I have decided I will continue hanging it. The caravan has got three 200-watt solar panels on the top. It's set up with a blackjack. I use a couple of spacer boards at the bottom to give it a firm footing. This particular blackjack has the self-folding leg. The sun is pretty low on the horizon, and I've gone ahead and I've set up a solar panel, and that's connected to the Anderson plug on the outside. Awning is back in, so we've got no protection from the sun at the moment, but that's because it's blowing an absolute gale. I think it's about an average of 26, 28 today, so everything's lifting, even the ground mat, sand's on it all the time. We do leave the chairs, even though it is usually covered in sand, but just dust it off when we want to use it. With the new Hurricane, the batteries are on the outside, and I think all of them come standard with two 200 amp batteries. I know with the new regulations it is a requirement that it's in a non-habitable area. However, this does lower the ground clearance of the van, and I am a little bit worried about that when we go on the Cape, because as we all know, the tracks are not level from one end to the other, and they're usually a bit of a U-shape, which means less ground clearance on the sides. I've had the van ceramic coated, and even then we've had some scratches, as you can, I don't know if the video will show, but that has actually cut into the vinyl from rubbing into trees. The windows seem to have held up alright. I have put PPF on the windows, and even though you can see scratch lines from there, they don't appear on the window. We've been living with the door separated. I mean, the hard door on the outside we've kept into the van. We've got the security screen, and we sleep at night with the security screen locked. The back of the van, I've got an outboard motor stand, which is a converted bicycle rack, spare wheel with a bag on it, and I've also gone ahead and installed a homemade SOG unit, venting unit, very simplified, 50mm motor in the housing over here, which is an electrical box junction, hole in the cap with a fitting and a hose, and that taps off the original flush unit. Having the airbags on the Hurricane has been wonderful. It just makes the van so much easier to level, including the blackjack on the top. Just get yourself a T-shaped spirit level, and what happens is you can use the blackjack to get front and back leveling and the airbags to get sideway leveling. Space is pretty tight inside, and to try and make efficient use of the space, things that we use every day like garlic and onion, I've simply gone ahead and I've put a couple of hooks up there, have them in the bag, pepper, salt, sweetener in the corner. The cooktop, I gotta tell you, I don't know why anyone would go ahead and make a cooktop with a glass top in a Caravan. It is probably the worst possible design. If I had known earlier, I would have gone ahead and asked for a bench top over the cooktop. Coffee machine, we just turn it that way so that there is a bit more bench space and all the cleaning stuff. Coffee pot holder, I actually got this at Aldi, really happy with it. It came with a stand. I just removed the stand and I screwed it into the wall. Right, the van itself. Standing in the kitchen right at the end, this is it. Nothing else to it. We've got the chairs, beds, and a swing away table. The swing away table is not standard. I've gone ahead and I've done that. The tunnel booth goes from one side all the way to the other, so it sticks out over there, but we just use it as a bedside table. We've used little baskets to compartmentalize all the little bits so we know where everything is in the evening. You've got to be a little careful with the overhead shelves. Even though it's good storage, we've bumped our heads a couple of times on that. Surprisingly, I haven't bumped my head on the overhead cabinet over the seats, but I'm sure it will happen at some stage. Hanging space for clothes and all is a real issue. We've got a couple of hooks there. I thought we'll get away with one fusion lock, but it turns out that when we're traveling, it's simply not enough. So I just stopped into the shop and bought a couple of 3M Commander hooks, and I've put them up, and pretty much the same in the kitchen. We've put one up for the kitchen towel, for the onions and garlic. I've put a little hook rack over here, but in hindsight, I should have got slightly larger hooks. The small hooks don't hold enough. Yes, gets in the way when you come in, but only by a little bit. The van itself has been put together, I think, relatively well. Nothing has broken yet, but I think the QC is lacking a little bit in terms of some of the fittings. The biggest issue I've had with the van, however, is with the electricals. And I suggest that you go check your electrical setups. When I tried to install the blackjack recommends that it gets wired directly to the batteries, which means that it bypasses the shunt and I won't get an accurate reading. However, I decided I would follow the instructions because it's not used a lot. It's only used at setup and when we're hitching up to pull away. When I tried to connect the wires to the battery, I found that it was impossible to reach the battery terminals. They are housed with absolute minimum clearance. The other thing I found out was that the main battery fuse, the lugs that they use were too large for the battery fuse cover. So what the factory did was they simply cut away the factory covers, the ends of them, and sticky taped over the fuse, which doesn't provide any protection whatsoever, and you could easily get something into the fuse or in contact with the terminal, and that is really, really dangerous, especially with two 200 amp batteries. The other thing that I discovered was the negative terminal. There are several items which are connected directly to the batteries, which mean that all of these items bypass the shunt. Because there's so many terminals connected to the negative point, the original battery screw wasn't long enough, so the electrician who installed it used a longer screw. But the screw was too long, and what he did was he just put a whole stack of washers there just to be able to get a contact for the negative points. I don't think that that's the right way to do it, and I think that Crusader should be a little bit more fussy about its electrical setups, especially since this is a safety item and we could end up with a lot of problems. The positive wire that they used was really thick, which was brilliant. However, when they put the conduit case over the wire, the split conduit wasn't large enough. Either that or it was just size. So when they twisted the wire to put the battery into the battery box, the split in the conduit widened, and that left me with insulation rubbing directly on the metal edge of the battery box. I'm really glad that I checked this before traveling, because I am sure that on corrugated roads the battery case would have cut right through and it would have been a dead shot, and that would have been disastrous. We had an issue with the batteries when we first got out here. When we did our first overnight stop, the batteries were full because we had been driving for about 6 hours. At the second stop, when we were at Quaba, we had again driven another 5 hours, I think, and the batteries were full. But what happened was, over the 2 days, the battery capacity dropped quite quickly. But we had good sunshine, and by late afternoon, it was topped up. And then, of course, we came up to Ningaloo. Now, Ningaloo was going to be the real test, because it was going to be a total of 21 days off-grid. And I think this is the longest I have ever been off-grid, whether camping in a car or camping on a motorbike. The first few days were fine. Battery capacity kept dropping every day, and it took longer to charge up. And then I started to get a low battery warning. I had Starlink, and I managed to send an email off to the dealer. Unfortunately, all they said to me was, next time you are in town, get a Caravan guy to check it and then let us know what is happening. If we think it's a warranty issue, we'll look into paying it. But it will really depend on the cost. Now, that wasn't going to be any good to me. We were 120 k's from Exmouth, and driving back all the way just to get it checked was not an option at the moment, while we were still able to top up the battery even though we didn't reach full capacity. However, this situation got worse, and I was really disappointed because this Caravan has been spec'd out with two 200 amp red arc lithium batteries, and it's got the total red vision system. Now, this is where I think there is an issue with the build and fit out. I think Crusader Caravans, in my opinion, depend too much on their trades, and their work is not checked. When the battery capacity kept dropping and it took longer and longer to charge until it reached a stage where I could not actually top up the batteries again, I connected to Starlink and I gave Red Arc a call. And I only did this because the dealers were of no help to me. Now, Red Arc were absolutely fantastic. Once I got to the technical support people, they talked me through troubleshooting. Give you a tip, alright? Bring a multimeter with you if you're going anywhere off grid, even if you don't know how to use it. The technician that I had on the line, his name was Adam, was brilliant. He walked me through step by step to troubleshoot the system. And we finally found that there were two issues. We had two warning messages come up. One was DC over voltage message, and the other one was battery low whenever I tried to use the inverter. The first was because a circuit breaker that the electricians used to fit onto the Caravan by the battery had tripped. This circuit breaker was put into a battery box that is not sealed. So what happened is, when I opened up the battery box to check on the instruction of the Red Arc technical support team, it was full of sand. And true enough, the circuit breaker in there had tripped. I'm not sure exactly what this circuit breaker is hooked up, but we believe that it was hooked up to the Manager 30. What caused it to trip? I don't know. The second warning that we got was a battery low warning. The technician had me go through the setup protocol on the Red Vision system. And here is where I found something really disturbing. Whoever set up the batteries when the van was manufactured had set it up for a single 200 amp AGM battery. So what happened was, every time I tried to use the inverter, once the battery system started to deplete itself, the low battery warning would kick in. That was working as it should. However, the battery wasn't reaching full capacity simply because the wrong type of battery had been selected. Following the instructions of Red Arc, we managed to change the battery setup from a single AGM battery to two 200 amp lithium batteries, total 400 amps of battery. And we also readjusted the low battery warning. Since then, I haven't had the low battery warning. I'm still waiting for the system to charge up, and the technician told me that it might take a few cycles before it reaches its full potential. We don't know if the batteries have been damaged. They have been damaged, and if they start to not hold the full capacity or rated capacity, I hope that this will be taken care of by warranty by Crusader. After all, this was set up by their electricians, and this was not checked through by the dealer before handover. So I find that really, really poor and not acceptable. Another couple of things in regards to the electricians that fitted out this van. The USB points that are provided, I don't know if you can see the one up here, has a blue ring of light on it. This is permanently on, and it's so bright that at night it actually lights up the whole van. And I find that really irritating. And I think when we get into Exmouth, I'm going to try and see if I can find a replacement which doesn't have a USB light on it that lights up. There's no point having the light down there. Yes, maybe it's lit up to tell you it's on, but you can't switch it off anyway. So what happens is you might as well not have a light down there if you're going to have a point that's going to be on all the time. The other thing that I find irritating is that the smoke alarm. I don't know if they're supposed to be blinking every few seconds, but in the dark, when the red light blinks, it's pretty bright and distracting. The TV point that we have installed in the van doesn't have any power to it. I spoke to the dealer, and again I got the same response. Try and see if you can get someone else to look at it, and if it's a warranty item, they will consider paying it. I asked them before I left if they could fix it, and they said, if you want us to take care of any warranty work, we're not going to be able to fit you in till July. And I think that that's not good enough when you are delivering a product, especially one that is not an off-the-shelf product, that I have spent a substantial amount of money to have it made, and after waiting 2 years for it. Other little things were door latches and cabinet latches and all. Yes, they function, but some of them were very difficult to open and all needed fine-tuning. As a customer, I should not have to do that. The van, when it's checked for QC at the dealership, all these little items should be taken care of. Okay, let's talk about a few other things. I think that the 180 litre Dometic fridge that has been installed in the Caravan is brilliant. So far, we haven't had any issues with them. We are now, I think, 19 days off grid, and we have had ice throughout. In the past, when I've made ice cubes in standard ice trays, I found that the ice melted really, really quickly. However, on one of the trips to Aldi, I found that they had baby food trays for freezing baby food into portion sizes. And I was thinking to myself, this would be brilliant for making large ice cubes. And I bought a couple. Each tray makes 10 large cubes. The advantage of having a large ice cube is it takes longer to melt and you use less ice. And with the two trays, we make a tray of ice every morning, and we make another lot of ice every evening. And we've had more than enough ice to last us this entire trip and to have cold drinks the whole day. If I suggest that if you're going to get ice cube trays, look for trays which make very large blocks of ice. Another thing that I've been really, really happy about is the coffee pod holder. Again, another Aldi item. Simple press specs, just machined out with a base stand. Nothing pretty to look at. But when I took it out of the box, I realized that I could remove the base, which left me with a flat piece that I could just mount to the wall. And this has been brilliant. We filled it up with coffee pod. We've moved between campsites on gravel tracks that have been heavily corrugated, and all the pods have stayed in place, so it's not been an issue at all. Absolutely brilliant. Couldn't be happier than that. Just to give you guys an update on the water situation, we've now been out here for 19 days and we still have another 2 days to go. We started off with 3 85-litre tanks and 110-litre bladder completely full when we came out to Ningaloo. 6 days after we were out at Ningaloo, I needed to go back into Exmouth to get some things done. And we took the opportunity to empty as much of the water bladder back into the tanks to replenish what we had used. We hadn't completely emptied the water bladder, and we still had some in there, but when we got into Exmouth, we went ahead and filled the water bladder anyway. I estimate that we took on maybe about 80 liters of water, 70 to 80 liters of water. So it's day 19, and we have got 185 liter tank full and half a tank of drinking water left. I suspect that it's probably less than half a tank, even though it's showing 2 bars. And we also have 2 boxes of Ningaloo nectar. I'm not sure how many liters that is, as we haven't opened the box yet, and we're just keeping that purely for emergencies. So we've not done too badly. Now we had a total of 8 times 4, 24, 275 liters, 385 liters of water out with us, plus we took on, I think, an additional 80 liters. So that will bring us up to about 455, if my math is correct. And so far we've managed to do quite well, I think. 21 days, I think, is a long stretch in anyone's book. A couple of things that we did to try and minimize the usage of water. We first tried to use salt water to rinse everything out, and then wash it with fresh water. And then I realized that the dishwashing liquid that we use, Morning Fresh, would actually lather up with salt water. So we started to do the majority of our washing in salt water and just rinsing it in fresh water. The other thing that we are doing, of course, is having very minimal showers. We wet down, soap up, and wash off. I don't think we even get all the suds off, but we're doing what we can to minimize water. So we will clearly have enough water until we get back to Exmouth. So I think we've done pretty reasonably in regards to that. If you have found this information useful, please like and subscribe, and look out for the next episode.